You're a disgrace. You're fired. The president, sounding more agitated than usual, declared with a hint of beer in his voice. At the word fired, not just I, but the surrounding employees, turned to look at the president. Mr. President, you can't use words like fired even as a joke. Sensing the sudden heavy atmosphere, Dorothy purposely used a bright tone to caution the president. However, the president ignored Dorothy's words and continued speaking. I don't joke about such things. Anyone who can't notify us in advance doesn't belong in this company. You're fired. Then, Dorothy, standing next to the president, took a piece of paper out of her bag. This is the contract from the chairman, John. Take a look at the contents. Following Dorothy's instruction, I looked at the contract placed on the table. The contract contained information that would greatly change my future. My name is John Miller. I am a 40-year-old manager in the sales department of a venture company. I switched to this company in my 30s, and this is my 5th year here. The reason I joined this company was due to a certain remark from the former president. It was during my 30s when I was consumed by job hunting. Because I wasn't young anymore, I kept getting rejected by every company. Wanting to change my situation, I attended a job change seminar. There, I heard a passionate speech by the former president, Chairman Wilson, of my current company. Anyone can change if given the opportunity. Creating that opportunity for all employees is my role. Hearing those powerful words on stage in front of many job seekers made my heart race. Afterward, I received a job offer from this company, and here I am today. Currently, former President Wilson has retired due to chronic illness. He passed the presidency to his son, Richard, and now supports the company behind the scenes as chairman of the board. Today, as usual, I am going about my duties. I've been in sales for 5 years. Initially, I was overwhelmed with learning the products, but now I've grown to build trust with my clients. After finishing my regular visits to my valued clients, I return to the office. Good job. As I return, my subordinate eagerly approaches me. Good job, John. The president was here this morning looking for you. He left a message asking you to come to his office when you get back. The president, got it, thanks. I'll head there right away. After thanking my subordinate, I put my shoes down from the desk and headed to the president's office. When I knocked, Dorothy, the president's secretary, peeked out from inside. John, good job. The president is waiting for you inside. Dorothy, the secretary, is a 40-year-old woman like me. She's an excellent secretary who has supported 2 generations of presidents. And surprisingly, she was my classmate in high school. When I came for my interview at this company, we both froze in surprise when we saw each other. Thank you, excuse me. As I stepped into the president's office, the president began to speak. Good job. Let's get to the point. Can you take over as the organizer for tomorrow's year-end party? Organizer? I thought Director Anderson was in charge of that. The president asked me to take over organizing the year-end party tomorrow. But I've always heard that the organizer for the year-end party was Director Anderson from the sales department. Actually, it seems he caught a bug yesterday. I got a message this morning. So he was off today because of that. But unfortunately, I have a meeting with a client until 6 p.m. tomorrow, so it's going to be tough for me to be the organizer. I informed the president that it would be difficult to take over the organizer role. Just asked to reschedule the meeting. Tomorrow's year-end party is a big event for the company. Since you often work with Anderson, I thought it would be easy for you to take over. President Richard said this while giving me a pressuring look. Inwardly, I sighed, knowing this was typical of him. I've been through similar situations before with President Richard, who never changes his mind once it's set. I knew that if I didn't agree, he would persistently persuade me. Understood. I'll take on the organizer role for tomorrow. Reluctantly, I nodded to President Richard's words. I knew you'd accept it, John. Make sure to get the details directly from Anderson. I need you to be at the venue by 5:30 p.m. since the organizer has to arrive early. Pleased with my agreement, President Richard spoke with a smile. Yes, understood. After acknowledging him, I left the president's office. As I exited, Dorothy, the secretary, followed me out. John, I heard what just happened. Are you sure you're okay with taking on the organizer role? Dorothy, well, I'll try to negotiate with the client to reschedule the meeting. And once the president makes up his mind, he doesn't budge. If I hadn't agreed, we would still be there. Since Dorothy and I were classmates, we naturally speak casually with each other when we talk alone. You're right. President Richard can be stubborn. I'll help out tomorrow too, so don't hesitate to rely on me if you need anything. Dorothy said this with a kind smile. Thanks. I really appreciate that. After I expressed my gratitude, Dorothy walked back to the president's office, her heels clicking on the floor. Then came the day of the year-end party. I managed to reschedule my meeting with the client and finished work just before 5:30 p.m. Well, I'm heading out. Good job, everyone. After clocking out on my PC, I said goodbye to the other employees and left the office. The party venue was about a 5-minute walk from the office, so I would make it by 5:30 p.m. as instructed. After checking the time on my watch, I started walking toward the beer hall where the party was to be held. As I walked, I noticed a young girl, likely in her mid-teens, huddled in pain in the corner of a building. With few passers-by around, I felt compelled to help and quickly approached her. Are you okay? You look like you're in a lot of pain. I called out to the girl, but she seemed too distressed to respond and just looked very uncomfortable. Seeing her expression, I looked around to see if there was anything I could do to help. I noticed she was holding an inhaler in her right hand. Judging by the inhaler and her wheezing breaths, it was likely an asthma attack. It's okay, just try to calm down and breathe slowly. I spoke to her in a calm, gentle voice, but her breathing showed no signs of calming down. In fact, it seemed to be getting shallower. Realizing the urgency, I quickly called for an ambulance. I informed the paramedics of our location and the girl's condition. They said they'd arrive in a few minutes. I've called an ambulance. They'll be here soon, so just hang in there. I continued to reassure the struggling girl. By the time sweat began to bead on her forehead, the ambulance arrived. As the paramedics placed her on a stretcher, one of them approached me. Excuse me, are you a family member? If you'd like, you can ride along as an escort. No, I'm just a passerby who happened to see her. But since there are no family members around, I'll accompany her if that's okay. I told the paramedics and then looked at the girl in the back. She probably wasn't with her family. Until her family arrives, she would surely feel anxious if left alone. With that in mind, I got into the ambulance. When we arrived at the hospital, the girl was immediately taken to the treatment room. I checked my phone and saw multiple missed calls from the president. Panicking, I called him back and was met with his angry voice. Hey, what are you doing? The year-end party started a long time ago. I'm sorry I couldn't contact you earlier, actually. I explained to the president what had happened. Then why didn't you call me first? It's normal to notify me first, right? Are you even at the hospital? It sounds like you're just making excuses to avoid your duties. No, I'm not lying. I deeply apologize for not contacting you and being late to the party. But I couldn't ignore a girl in distress. As soon as things settle here, I'll head to the venue. Please understand. I apologized sincerely, but the president's anger didn't seem to subside. Just get to the venue now. The organizer has a lot to do, like taking beer orders and handling the bill. The president yelled before abruptly hanging up. Later, once the girl's attack subsided, her family arrived at the hospital, and her mother thanked me repeatedly. When I checked the time as I left the hospital, it was past 7 p.m. I hurried to the beer hall where the year-end party was being held. I'm very sorry for being late. I immediately apologized to the president upon arriving at the venue. You're late. While you were gone, Dorothy had to take all the beer orders and clean up the tables. Who do you think you are, showing up late to such an important event without even a call? I'm truly sorry. I assure you this will never happen again." Despite my repeated apologies, the president's anger only grew. Seeing this, Dorothy tried to calm him down several times, but he remained in a foul mood. Finally, the president uttered words that were hard to believe. "You're a disgrace. You're fired." The president, seemingly influenced by beer, shouted louder than usual. At the word "fired," not only I but also the surrounding employees turned to look at the president. "Mr. President, you can't use words like fired, even as a joke." Sensing the heavy atmosphere as the room fell silent, Dorothy spoke to the president in a deliberately bright tone. However, the president ignored Dorothy's words and continued. "I don't joke about such things. Anyone who can't notify us in advance doesn't belong in this company. You're fired." Hearing the president's harsh words, I swallowed hard. "If that's what you say, Mr. President, I understand," I replied directly, looking straight into the president's mocking eyes. I had joined the company because of the former president's inspiring words. But ever since the current president took over, I had been feeling increasingly dissatisfied. Sudden policy changes and prioritizing the president's mood over work, like today, were common occurrences. Living through such daily frustrations, I had started to feel that following this person would eventually reach a breaking point. While I was grateful for meeting wonderful colleagues and clients, I had struggled with the president's methods many times. Therefore, I could remain calm when I was told I was fired at this moment. "Well, someone who can't even communicate properly won't be welcomed anywhere. Enjoy your last party." The president smirked as he said this. Seeing our conversation, Dorothy hurriedly took a piece of paper out of her bag. Standing next to the president, she walked over to me with the paper. She came to my side and quietly placed the paper on the table in front of me. "This is the contract from the chairman, John. Please take a look." Following Dorothy's instruction, I looked over the contract on the table. The contract stated that I was to be promoted to a director in the next term. Wait, this contract? After reading it, I looked at Dorothy sitting next to me. "As it says, the chairman intends to promote you, John. It seems that Richard's father has no intention of firing you." Dorothy's eyes looked directly into mine as she spoke. "What?" The president furrowed his brow and grabbed the contract roughly. "What is this contract? I don't know anything about it." This contract was prepared by the chairman. During the last executive meeting, the chairman proposed your promotion, John, and it was approved by more than half of the executives, making it official. Richard, I believe you were absent from that meeting, so you might not have known. Dorothy explained the contract calmly to the irritated president. "My father did this behind my back, but I'm the president, so ultimately, I have all the authority, John. You're fired as of today." The president's stubborn pride was becoming evident, showing he wouldn't change his mind once he made a decision. The president was surely determined to fire me out of sheer stubbornness at this point. As I was contemplating this, Dorothy, sitting next to me, spoke up. "Calling someone incompetent? Even as the president, there are things you should and shouldn't say. Your current remarks seem to be an abuse of your position." Dorothy calmly reprimanded the president, but he showed no sign of listening. In fact, her rebuttals seemed to make him even angrier. "What are you talking about?" "I'm the president, so I can do whatever I want. If you defy me, I can fire you too, Dorothy. Anyone who opposes me has no place in this company." The president's voice made the surrounding employees fall silent. Then, a waiter approached us apologetically from the back of the restaurant. "Excuse me, but could you please lower your voice? It's disturbing the other customers." Apparently, the president's yelling was loud enough to be heard outside the private room. Normally, the polite thing to do would be to apologize, but the president clicked his tongue and grew even angrier. "Who do you think you are? I'm a customer here. You should be grateful I'm spending money in this dump." The president, his face red with anger, rudely snapped at the waiter. His behavior was childish and unbearable to watch. Sensing the heavy atmosphere, Dorothy hurriedly spoke up. "We deeply apologize for the disturbance. Since our time is almost up, we'll settle the bill to avoid further trouble." Hearing Dorothy's words, the surrounding employees also apologized to the waiter. "Understood. I'll bring the bill right away." The waiter said this and quickly disappeared toward the register. The atmosphere in the banquet hall had become heavy and uncomfortable. "Richard, you've had too much to drink. Let's call it a night and discuss everything with the chairman tomorrow when we're all sober." The president, looking unsatisfied, downed the remaining beer in his glass in one gulp. Thanks to Dorothy's intervention, the year-end party managed to come to a close without further incident. The president staggered out of the restaurant, mumbling complaints, but no one offered a word of concern. As we left the restaurant and were about to disperse, Dorothy whispered to me, "John, I'll talk to the chairman about what happened today. I don't think he wants to fire you, so don't worry." The next day, after the disastrous year-end party, I was called to the president's office by Dorothy. It was likely about what had happened yesterday. "Excuse me," I said as I entered the office. I followed Dorothy into the president's office and found Chairman Wilson standing there. Since retiring, Chairman Wilson had never visited the company. He stepped down from the presidency due to a chronic illness and focused on his treatment. Over the past 2 years, he seemed to have become a bit thinner. "Chairman Wilson, it's been a while." When I greeted him, he returned the same smile as always. "John, it's been a long time. How have you been?" "I've been well. It's good to see you looking well too, Chairman Wilson." Hearing his voice brought a smile to my face. His voice was as strong and kind as when I first heard his speech. "Let's get to it. Dorothy told me about what happened yesterday. It seems Richard was very rude to you. I want to apologize on his behalf." Chairman Wilson has deeply expressed his apology to me. "Please, Chairman Wilson, you don't need to apologize. It is not your fault." Seeing how he reacted, I quickly responded, "Thank you. I wanted to inform you about the decision regarding the current president, Richard. I am aware that Richard has repeatedly been rude to you and other employees. Considering his recent inappropriate remarks, I have decided to remove him from his position." Chairman Wilson's expression turned serious as he spoke. "Removing the president, but then, who will take over as the next president?" "The next president hasn't been officially decided yet. We'll discuss it further at the upcoming shareholders meeting." "I see. For the sake of the company, please take care of it. But please don't overdo it." When I conveyed this to the chairman, he squinted his eyes and gave me a wrinkled smile. "Thank you. Richard's remarks to you were indeed authoritarian, exploiting his position as president. This outcome is also my responsibility for passing the presidency to Richard. To avoid repeating the same mistake, we'll proceed with discussions cautiously." Chairman Wilson spoke with a resolute and unwavering gaze. Following this, all employees were informed that President Richard had been dismissed and would officially step down. Richard appeared at the company only once before his dismissal. Seeing his expression, devoid of his previous vigor, made me gasp. "Richard, take care." I decided to speak to Richard as we passed each other in the office. I wasn't sure if those words were for him or just my own thoughts. But seeing his weakened state, I felt compelled to say them out loud. "Sorry, thank you." Richard, momentarily puzzled by my words, muttered this almost inaudibly. Richard was likely spoiled since childhood as the president's son. In such an environment, there was probably no one to correct him or teach him right from wrong. I hope Richard takes this experience as a lesson and grows into a responsible adult. 6 months have passed since then. I'm still busy every day in the sales department of this company. And over these 6 months, my surroundings have changed significantly. I was promoted to the position of director overseeing the Western Division, just as the contract stated. We also have a new president, and now everyone in the company is united in working towards its growth. "Good morning, President. I have last month's sales report from the West Branch." I entered the president's office and greeted her as she worked on her computer. "Thank you, John. And I'm still not used to your formal tone, please. Go back to how you used to speak. Dorothy smiled warmly at me, just as she always did.